Well, hello, everybody, and thank you very much for taking time out of your Monday night to come join us. In case you haven't noticed, we grew by one. Normally it was like for the while it was like John and I, and then it was MJ, and now Howie decided to jump in here, and Howie is rocking the shirt, and we're not even going to pay attention to MJ's shirt because Howie's shirt is awesome.
Join up. Lots of cool stuff right here.
For those of you that can't read for whatever reason, DJNTV Insider.com is where he's telling you to go, and you need to check that out. But no, tonight is for all the people who are too lazy to watch the show last week, right? You know, if you're too lazy to like sit there for 2 hours and just watch something, we're going to give you the Reader's Digest version of it, so that you go back and watch it, because we're not going to do justice to it. That's all there is to it. I try to sell this, but I'm sorry. The guys were too good last week, except for that first one.
It was. The first guy, he was okay.
He was, I kid, because I actually, you know, when we took notes, I got like a good third of a page just on the first guy. So.
Really?
Yeah, I did.
I did. I honestly did. I did take notes.
Yeah, I took people down a deep path of the way my brain works.
It's okay.
Yeah,
you did. I was.
Well, I got it. I got it right away.
So speaking of deep paths of where my brain works, if those have been following the show recently, I always try to wear a themed shirt that goes along with whatever we're talking about that night. And I believe I got my wires kind of crossed, because I thought we were going to have the Dark Knight on the show. So I wanted to show colors for the Dark Knight, but we have the Dark Star. So
the Dark.
I thought it was a Dark. See, Dan, perfect reaction. That's all I was hoping for.
That's a stretch. That's even more of a stretch.
I thought it was the Dark Knight. I just read too fast, and I just wanted to show my support for him.
Just gonna do
there you go. Now we understand. Now we understand. Oh my goodness.
So for those of you who didn't get to hear, last week was we have a monthly virtual training night, and we do that typically the third Monday of the month, and last week was that Monday. Next month we'll be doing one in May, around I think it's the 17th of May, somewhere in that ballpark. And you can get links to those as we get closer. DJNTV.com/virtual expo takes you to either the last event, or once we set things up, the new event that's coming up. So that's always the ongoing link. It's in the chat, so you guys can click on that. Last week is still there. It's available. You can see that. These things are now free. They used to be just for members, but because we've got sponsors and such, and we've got DJ and TV insiders who are believing in the training, that has made it so we can have these things available for everyone to hopefully help people grow their business during these times of kind of difficulty, yet as events are starting to slowly come back, and then they kind of drift away for some of us. It's been a weird time.
What was my thing last week or week before? Messy, cloudy, confusing.
Yeah, yes. that's actually very accurate of what's going on in our world right now. But hey, we're getting better.
The key here, I always say, and again, this is me and my continual quoting of things, but we have to be like sharks, because a shark can't swim backwards, and a shark can't survive unless it's moving forward or have oxygenated water going over its gills. So we just have to keep moving, and that's how we stay alive.
And we
Whatever that may be in your world.
Teeth.
What's that?
We can also constantly regrow teeth.
That'd be cool, right?
That would be.
Ooh,
Sharp ones? I'd wear my own
Take
teeth.
a bite out of the competition.
Okay.
That's so bad.
The dental bills. There'd be a lot less dental bills. There you go.
So what we're going to do in tonight's show, again, you can go to djntv.com/virtual expo to see the videos. We're just going to go through and talk a little bit about the different presentations, because we had, I'm going to go to the actual list here. Oh, I thought I had it pulled up. I don't. So starting us off, we had MJ. MJ started kind of, it wasn't a typical MJ video. I think that's probably the
Right.
first thing, because people are used to a certain type of video from MJ that deals with music, the different songs and mixing and virtual DJ things. This one He focused entirely on the life and times of Huey Lewis. It was great. It was the best show ever. I think you all need to watch it.
It was.
Drinking game again. There you go. No. For those of you who don't know, I'll try to do a really quick synopsis of it. For those of you who know, I'm writing a book. I just finished my second draft. I'm looking now for an official editor and typesetter and all that kind of stuff. And my book is about creativity. And I just, in the process of not being able to come up with a topic to speak on, I decided, I always, of all my life, I've always had things I do to kind of, bring back inspiration or to refresh myself or all kinds of stuff like that. Because most of my life, everything I do is creative. It's whether it be making a flyer for an event or DJing or on this show or whatever. There's so much of my life that is creative. And after a while, you kind of get stuck in the mud sometimes. So I've created a whole bunch of ways to kind of get around that. And because I couldn't come up with a topic, I did one of my things. And the next day, it was such a clear vision of what I was going to talk about that all the notes that I spoke on took less than 30 minutes to write down. But it was just about all the little tricks I do, as I call it, life hacks, to keep your creativity fresh. And that's even more than just creative. It's also expressive for those who are out, on a microphone and stuff. Having that freshness, because like when you have that, kind of cut edge, you tend to be a little bit more peppy and stuff. And these are all kind of things to, in the doldrums of whether, like I said, it felt like we were on lockdown for 12 years. And now that we're not, you got to take a little bit of running start at it. And that's all it was. So if you're a creative person and you kind of sometimes get stuck, go check it out. Like I said, they're all my little hacks. I'm probably sure I have more, but that was just the ones that I wrote down and took 11 minutes and 55 seconds to say it as opposed to 10. John gave me extra because the last one I did, it was 8 minutes. So this one was 12. I said, okay, so I'm even now.
Yeah, you're averaging out. But I think that was one of the parts that stood out to me. And it was a great reminder that there's sometimes when you've got a project, whatever it may be, that it maybe isn't in your best interest to sit there and grind and grind and grind. Mm-hmm. And that spoke out, kind of jumped out at me. And it's like, yeah, that is a great little thing to keep in mind and remember. Howie, what did you...
Well, my takeaway from it was like, oh, I'm having a conversation with MJ. I mean, because, we've talked many times before. And I thought, oh, okay, he's talking to me, And it's like, oh, I get it. Yeah, I do that too. Like, okay, you're stuck. Hey, you have to walk away sometimes and just know that, hey, I've been here before. This isn't the end of the world. Let's go out and find some inspiration somewhere else and come back to it because there really is no fear. Eventually it will come to us because we've been there before. And I thought it, I don't know, I just thought it was personal to me.
Sure.
I really enjoyed it.
I'm glad to hear that because that's one of the things in my book. I've had a couple people say who pre-read it talk about it feels like a conversation with me, and whether it be a video or the writing, that is like the biggest compliment because I just want it to be. I don't want to be talking down or me throwing information at you. I want something you feel that comes to you from me. So cool. Dan, you're going to say something. I'm sure it was about my shirt.
No, I agree with kind of what John was saying. It's very easy for you to, when you just continually grind of just having yourself almost fatigue, just from the mental fatigue of trying to do it. Lately I've been talking about, I've got these love stories that I've got coming up, and there was a couple different times where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to sit down. I'm going to shut off everything around me and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do it. And I got like an hour in and I went, I need to stop. Like I'm not making any headway. I'm trying to overanalyze everything. I'm trying to pull teeth on it. And it was just not coming. So just the idea of getting that breakaway. One of the things that I really liked from yours was this idea of the fresh palette. This is something that I tend to do a lot. Coming out of an event, on the way home, I will listen to music that is typically different than what I've been playing up to that point. I don't go to the extent of like talk radio. I know some people do that on their way home, or silence. For me, I just can't quite go to that distance, but I try and find a version of music that is different than what I've been playing, just to kind of, again, clear myself, get rid of all that I've been, banging in my head for the last 4 or 5 hours. And just have that new view. Another one, and I'm going to jump on this also. I love to take a picture. This is something I heard a couple years ago of when you're done setting up, grab a phone. When you're done setting up for an event, any event, it doesn't matter what it is. When you're done setting up for an event, go to where the guests are going to be standing and take a picture. And then look at the picture. Take a picture like you didn't even think about it. Just hold up, take a picture, and then look at it and go, oh my gosh, there were cables I didn't realize were in the picture. Or there is, there is some strap from some bag that's kind of hanging out there that you never would have realized had you not taken the 5 seconds. And even I've done it before where I've gone out, I've looked, okay, everything looks good. Go back, go out there with the camera, oh my gosh, like how did I miss that the first time?
Right.
And such a huge difference. Such a huge difference.
And then the photographer comes and sets their bag next to your stuff right afterwards.
Well, that's another story for another time. While we're on that topic, let me go down the rabbit hole since you brought it up. My personal philosophy has been this: the best thing you can do is to be an ally to these people. All right, for a multitude of different reasons. There's the best reason, but I don't know of many guests at an event that are going to look at those bags that were set behind you and that the photographer keeps getting into and think that suddenly it's the DJ's bag.
Yeah.
Like, I admit they could make it, look a little bit cleaner, the ones that just kind of throw their stuff down, but I really don't recall a guest ever kind of thinking, hey, that's the DJ's. Now, maybe I could be wrong. Maybe they're saying it, or maybe they're thinking it, not saying it, but you're creating more of a hassle than what you're worried about, because again, the guests, even if they do notice it, are not attributing it to you because they're not seeing you get in it. They're seeing somebody else.
Pro tip in less than 15 seconds. What I do is I have an old table topper and I took just half of it that folds. I stick that in the corner. I greet the photographer, shake hands. Hey, I have a spot for your stuff. It's down. They can reach in, grab it. From the audience point of view, it just doesn't look like bags. It's just a black wall in the corner.
Nice.
It works every time.
Yeah.
And then they think, oh, you're my friend.
Wasn't that a punk rock song, Black Wall?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, because they want to, it gives them added security too. People don't see it. Oh,
it's out of sight.
Yeah, it works.
So let's keep going here, guys. Second, we had Don Carlo, who some of you know as Carlos Reese. He's a fine young man coming to us from Chicago. I got to spend some time with him last year down in Las Vegas, and he hung out with us. And this is his first time of being on camera, speaking as he did.
Really?
Yeah, it was the very first time, and being that English isn't his first language, so he had that hurdle. Second, the first time of doing this, and then to be talking to a camera, because sometimes it's just a lot easier to speak to a crowd than a camera. So you put all these things together for him. I think he did an incredibly good job.
I thought he was a professional speaker. Actually, he was good.
Yeah, even to me is my. We talked about cameras and stuff when he did his. I took a look at what he had behind him and everything, and I'm like, that's very well It's like shadowed lit the way you're supposed to. So even stuff like that. I noticed the dumb stuff. I'm sorry.
No, he did a really nice job. Really nice job on that one. Dan, let's start with you. Since we kind of had you wrap up the MJ side of it, what kind of stood out? What did you any kind of takeaways from Carlos?
Didn't make specific notes on Don. I didn't, because I did like what he was talking about with the setups and everything like that, but I unfortunately didn't write my notes, so I'm sorry.
Probably the one that stood out to me the most was his practice, talking about practice and the Bruce Lee quote that he's not afraid of one man who's been practicing 10,000 kicks, as opposed to a man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. That whole idea that it's going to take that many reps to become competent, or maybe really high quality. It's something I think we overlook as in all society, is that, I've done it 3 times. No, you have to do it over and over. As the saying goes, you have to do it so many times that you can't make a mistake. is what it is. So
Right.
that one just really stood out for me on Carlos's presentation.
That really stood out to me because of what I do with the lighting. It was like, yes, when he said you get a muscle memory and you're not even going to realize that you've mastered this. And I'm like, wow, because when I'm teaching people certain things, it's like, how can you not get this? And I'm like, then I have to check myself. And it's like, oh, well, yeah, I've been doing this so much that it's just natural to me. And, so I have to give the student a bit of a break and like, oh, I get it. That's right. I was there at one time, I thought he did a great job. He really did.
MJ, did you have anything that you?
Like I said, it's just he. When they talk about the it factor in entertainment business, some people work at it. He is a communicator. Like especially not being his first language, he's a communicator, and not only was he communicating that that way, body language, like I said, because I look at the whole, every bit of it is part to me, so I'm looking at him, and he's not showing nervousness, that sort of thing. But when he talked, like I said, I think that's a point that stuck out with me, because one of the things in my DJ classes I always say, I said, you doing something 1,000 times is going to be a lot more than me showing you 100 times. Or vice versa, you doing it 100 times versus me showing you 1,000 times. I say it's just you just have to jump in. Don't be afraid of failure. Jump in, try it before you know it. And you can tell for him, he's a person that jumps in on things. Like I said, I also hung out with him in Vegas. We all three squished into a very small Uber, and I got a selfie with all of us, like shoulders sideways. So he's a real good dude, real laid back. Definitely enjoyed hanging out with him, and definitely enjoyed his talk last week.
Yeah, it was good stuff. Continuing on, next we had Superfly. Superfly came in and he's giving some mixing tips and a little demonstration. I was talking about some controllers for those. It was really kind of a getting started, I think is probably a way to describe that. That he took the kind of talked through some controllers and some decision making there, and then showed us how to kind of get started at the idea of doing some scratching and mixing. And I thought that was really kind of cool how he was able to break that down and do all of that and still keep it in that 10 minutes.
Very much so. One of the things I've always had is that you can have the meat of something all the time, but unless you have a little bit of milk with that, you might choke on the meat. So he brought some simplicity back to it on points that, like, Dan's can mix, and Dan was saying stuff that he was like, I like how he did that. That was, I didn't think about that, or that makes sense to me. I don't know. I think makes sense was maybe the word you used, Dan, but kind of go on that, because like I said, he brought some simplicity back in, but it really meant something to you as a veteran.
Well, it was one of those things where I don't consider myself a scratcher in the least little bit, because every time that I'm like doing it in my headphones, I'm like, it sounds great. And then I like put it on the speakers and I'm like, oh, that sounds horrible. And so what I really liked about Superflies is it was taken down to a level that someone who has felt either the way I have, or someone that would be new to it, could start with. So it was one of those things where as I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, this isn't overwhelming for me. This is something I'm going to have to watch a couple times. And that was kind of my takeaway was, this is not something I'm going to watch one way through, take a couple notes. This is something I'm going to have to go back with the controller in front of me and try and reproduce some of the things that he's done, just to kind of see. But I liked how, I want to say easy, because that's not the idea behind it, but how
bite-sized,
practical,
yeah,
bite-sized, that it really was for somebody who has kind of felt the way I do.
Yeah. As a teacher, I was going to say, as a teacher, you should understand the fact of being able to break something down so simple that just the example doesn't overwhelm someone, and he did that.
Yeah. And
yeah, it worked for me because I was like, oh, wow. I'm not a scratcher either. And I was like, I got to try that. And so I did. And it was like, holy cow, it works, and I was surprised myself. And, I spent, I don't know, just maybe a couple of hours. So now I'm an expert, of course.
Oh, yes.
But, no, but it really did surprise me how he made it so clear for me. And I was like, wow, I could go for some more of this stuff. So I loved it.
Yeah. So that was DJ Superfly coming to us. That was he, and on the descriptions of those videos there on that page, there's times. Basically, start the video at the top of the whenever you start the video to watch it. Then 5 minutes later, MJ's on. 20 minutes later, Carlos is on. That's why the times are still there. So just kind of gives you an idea of when each session was. Then coming up after Superfly, we had DJ Mars coming to us from Chicago, and Mars was. You mentioned earlier, Howie, that it was kind of like MJ, just sitting down across the table, and I think that kind of came through on a few of the presentations, and Mars, I think, certainly was one of those also.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's see, the notes I had from him was that the importance of the communication and getting to know the clients. And these are things I already do, but there are people that are not good communicators. So I think it would be very valuable. And for me, it was just a reinforcement to hear what he had to say, that, hey, I'm still on the right track here in 2021. Like, this isn't old stuff. Like, oh, you should call them by their surname and always say Mr. Well, no, everybody, okay, you call them by their first name because it's the new millennium. No, this is stuff that's timeless. I believe what I got out of it.
Yeah, the one point he talked about, getting to know them. We were, Dan, John, and I were watching it behind the scenes, and that just became a conversation to us just right off the bat. Like, well, yeah. So it's this again. Sometimes the simplest things spark the biggest fire.
Yes.
So that's why I always accept anything coming at you like that. You be hesitant to watch some of these saying, well, I already know my business. I've had so many DJs go, well, I DJ every weekend. What do I need to learn for? And then they hear one person say one thing, and then they go, oh, wow, I never thought of that. And that's what, I encourage you next month when they have it, it's going to be tailored towards the wedding DJs. So I'm going to be doing a really long speech. No, I'm not. I'm not even going to be part of it. But that's a good one to tune into, that even if you think and you have your business down pat, pay attention, because there might be one thing that sparks your fire, and then you just take on a whole new season and a whole new attitude.
Do we get charged extra? Like, I got a lot more than just one nugget out of that thing. So like,
it's a la carte. It's what do they call it? Not a la carte, but
all I can eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Buffet
It's
style.
the buffet style.
Even though you're not allowed to have buffet style right now because of things, when it comes to knowledge, it's all buffet style.
All about it there.
There were three things I really pulled out from Mars's, and the first one, obviously, we've hit on a couple times, getting to know your clients. That, I think, was that was kind of a dull moment for me. Like, okay, I got that, but when he threw in even the corporate clients, like the dynamics of the corporates, that was the one that I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Like I get to know my wedding couples. That's a pretty easy one. And even school dances, to a degree, I kind of get to know from the schools, and I know the dynamics of the schools. But it was like, suddenly it was corporate, and I'm like, that's a good point. Hadn't thought about that. Even just so much as knowing who's the boss and who's really the boss, and how that kind of tends to work. Another one that I hadn't thought about, playing music for the group that's setting up the room. Like, if you're there early enough that you're completely set up, I know sometimes it's very tempting just to kind of chill for a few moments and just kind of breathe in and relax. And obviously you want to kind of get yourself in the mood. But very easily you could throw on a premix or something that you've done just to kind of provide some tunes for them. And it puts them in a better mood. And if they're in a better mood, they're going to be a little bit nicer to the guests. The guests are going to be in a better mood because of that. And then it kind of all snowballs. So it was something I didn't even really think about, and makes complete sense. Complete sense for you. I mean, you're there, you're set up. It's not going to cost you anything to play, for an extra time, especially for those that are setting up. And then this is another one that really stuck out for me. play your songs and talk on the mic with purpose.
Yeah. Yes.
That
was
you
a
know,
good one.
that's something I've heard before, especially with the talking on the mic. You know, don't just get on just to say anything. Like you have a reason for what you're doing, and think about what that reason is before you ever get started. But even just the playing songs, like sometimes, you know, we kind of get in a groove and it's like, oh, I'm just gonna throw this in. Why? Like make sure there's some thought behind it. And MJ, not everybody does that, just so that you know. Because you always say like you're thinking like 7-8 songs in advance. Not everybody does that. Not everybody plays their songs with a full thought out purpose on every single one. So there you go. Make sure you're doing that as well.
I like the point you brought up about playing for the venue people.
Yeah.
I've been doing that for years, because what happens is the venue, if it's just a catering type thing, they're not going to have the licensing. So what they have is a music service that plays, you know, almost like elevator music. They might be, you know, living on a prayer done by somebody you never heard of. And they're like, oh my God, that's horrible. But when I played, I said, would you like me to play something? You know, because the last thing I break down is one speaker. So they brought over a phone and played a Spotify list, and boy, they were jumping around. They were like, man, you are so cool. Thank you so much. And boy, you know, all of a sudden the venue likes me. I'm like, that's good.
That is I like the way he was talking about making allies and such.
Yes.
That was a good touch with that. All right, let's keep going here, gentlemen. Next, we had Jamie Perez and Jordan Marshall, who have, I think they're in New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's where they're based out of. And they have been working together in a kind of a partnership. They are boyfriend, girlfriend. It's basically, it was a conversation of two working together and how they kind of split tasks and working towards each other's strengths and complementing each other in those areas in which they need that help. Is that a good way to say it?
Yeah.
I always like to use the example when people talk about helpers and you think a helper is less, but a helper is the person that lets you be able to do what you do, because without the helper, you're not going to be able to do it. It's as simple as that. The helper makes it, they are the key that opens the door. It might be a small key, but that small key opens a big door, and it's very important.
Very true. And as Jordan mentioned, you know, that organization, that one of them is organized and one of them's not so much organized. Yeah, I don't know what that's.
Yeah,
But
oh man, I thought of Lori and I when this came up right before it was before the COVID. Yeah, right before Vegas when we went out, and she did her first wedding with me, and I said, do you know how to wrangle cats? And she said, I teach special ed elementary. She said, I can handle this, and she did. You know, like a lot of the organizing and particularly the introductions, where she physically put an arm out and held people back so they wouldn't photobomb the, you know, photographer for each person. Oh my gosh, what a great job. I mean, and so and as everybody knows, she does all of my copy work for me whenever I write anything or introduction. So it's like, yeah, I know I'm not good at it, and I'm not afraid to ask for help. And it just, the whole thing rang true to me. I was like, whoa, these two are, I was like, it was awesome. It was just a really, really well done presentation. Yeah.
So one of the takeaways that I took, and it sounds kind of weird because it doesn't seem like it was one that would stand out necessarily, but it was where he basically he talked about how their relationship kind of started, as far as like there was some awkwardness, like as far as like who's taking control of what. And I think of that, you know, whether it's a significant other or whether it's just somebody as part of your business, you know, a lot of times our first gut is it's got to go perfect. Like I've got to find somebody that's perfect for my business right out of the gate. And that's not, unfortunately, probably not very likely, let alone very probable in some aspects. So it's one of those things where it's a good idea to take that step back, you know, to kind of realize that two-way street here too. You know, just because you don't think it went well, they may be thinking the same thing about you, and finding a way that you can work together and play off their strengths in the best way that's possible, so that you can continue to grow and use each other to your best advantage.
Could I add one more thing?
Certainly,
No.
yes.
What I like is the team aspect of it, and it doesn't have to be just, you know, your significant other. What I thought of when I was watching that too was Las Vegas, when we all went out there. And when we were setting up, everybody stayed in their lane and didn't worry about and trusted, like, okay, the guys setting up the stage and the trusting they were doing their thing. Me, I'm just doing lights. You and Ben, John were doing, you know, the sound, and you were setting up the video, and everybody was working, you know, and it just all, boom, came together perfectly. I mean, it was like, for me, it was a treat because it was the best crew that I've ever worked with, because everybody just, it all came together, and 1 hour before showtime, everything was ready. It was wonderful, you know.
Working with the team, that is always kind of a neat experience, especially when it does come together well. And then there's times it doesn't, but that's another story. Let's keep going here. Let's see. Then we're getting to our headliner, Mitch Taylor, which will be there in just a moment. But before Mitch, we've got Jason Jani that was up talking about 5 things you can do to connect with clients. Really some practical information once again. And it was, if you've ever sat across the table from Jason Jani, it was that way. You know, that type of, that kind of, that intensity in when he's sharing is definitely part of Jason Jani's character. And just a lot of good tips and takeaways. Not only his 5 tips that he shared, but there's these little nuggets. And Jason's presentation was one that, as I was listening to that, it's like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. His is, I mean, many of these are going to be ones you can go back and listen to time and time again. The second time I listened to Jason's, I had a completely different list of points, you know, that type of thing. So,
the best presenters are that way for sure. I don't know that Jason is. No, I'm kidding. He was checking in earlier, and we do appreciate everything he's done for this industry. I mean, even before he was doing some of the videos lately, he was well known for really pushing the bar in a lot of aspects. And definitely appreciate that. My big takeaway from him was just, again, which kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier, but again, getting that information, you know, finding out the information that you have about your clients. And this is something that I've heard different ways, you know, research your clients. They're researching you, you know, find out what you can about them, so that when you're talking to them, it makes an instant connection. Not that you're going to go out and you're going to be like, oh, they're into horse racing, or, you know, I'm going to talk about horse racing and not know anything about it. Like no, but look for things that are going to make that connection, legitimate connection that you can build upon.
My big thing was when he said, listen. You know, and that seemed to be a common thing, because when he said that, it seemed to be a common thing. Like, listen, you know, listen more than you talk, and get, you know, as much information as you can. And it was a validation that, yeah, that's still in style. And I like that.
very true.
I was impressed with his camera. I mentioned
Yeah.
when we were watching it live, I brought that up immediately. I'm like, oh, that's a good camera. Look at that. It was the perfect. And that, again, is a person who notices things through different eyes. Like I said, that my eyes look at different things. You can take that exact thing into whether you're doing something live or not. And like we talked about in mine about the camera, a different view. He made his view focused on him, like literally, because it had a very short focus depth. And that makes, like, again, these are all tricks used in presentation. The word listen, you can get someone's attention with hand motion, or make them really want to focus on you by not doing anything at all. And his setup had that good balance of ebb and flow, I mean, man speaks constantly. You know, I don't know he constantly, but you know what I mean. He's in front of public, so that comes very naturally. But that's a gift too. That's part of that factor when it comes to presentation. That's the stuff I'm so sorry that I'm not talking about like other stuff because I'm looking at the whole thing as a whole presentation and was very impressed by it though. And was it me or is that the first time I've ever seen him without his glasses?
No, I've seen him once or twice.
Yeah, but he bounces back and forth.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he bounces back.
It was the good camera work that noticed because there was no flash off the lens because that's the stuff I noticed.
Well, yeah, I was just going to mention that you know when I do my stuff, I have to do it. You know, I can't be reading off a script because the glasses will reflect.
Lighting a person who wears glasses is totally different than lighting a person who doesn't. But
it really is.
If you can do both, then man, or you got a valuable skill.
Yes, you do. And some very expensive equipment.
Yeah, sometimes just some good diffuser stuff because I've used a tracing paper as diffuser on light. That works. It does a good thing to kill the direct push. So sorry, derailed. Back on track.
And then for the final, our headliner for the April event was Mitch Taylor talking about perceived hurdles of connecting and selling. And in the one area that this is basically, I listened to this a couple of different times because this has been a scenario that I've been concerned with. And he was talking about trust and building trust when it comes to connecting with your clients and such. And he talked about the fear of what happens when one of your entertainer or you, if you're the only DJ and you're out because of this COVID situation, not because you're sick, but in his case, he had an MC that performed for an event the week before, and they found out, I think he said 1 hour before the practice for the upcoming event, that they were quarantined. The state basically had, or not recommended, but basically they had to quarantine, and the state had gotten a hold of them. And that whole idea of, he was referring to the building of the trust and such, so that his process that they had put together would allow them to, have the client would feel comfortable knowing that, okay, we've done the work, we've got all the documentation, that someone can step in and he has backups for it and can do that. But that whole, I listened to that and basically I hit pause and it's like, how do you plan a backup in that type of situation? You know, Dan, you're solo op, and it's me and Michael, but to a point, if one of us is quarantined, we're in the same house. We're all quarantined to a point, and how that would work. And I know that wasn't part of Mitch's talk of, solving that problem completely beyond having a plan in advance. But it was that cold, that shiver down your back thinking about what could be in this time. So that was, Mitch had a lot of great information, but that was the one that raised the hair on the back of my neck. So,
well, and that's the one of those thoughts that I dealt with all fall. Like that was my big thing for fall was that, and it wasn't that it was going to be something that happened at a previous event, though that was probably more likely. But I was more concerned that something was going to happen with my day job and the people that I was going to be around, and I was going to be taken out because of that. And it was one of those things where it's like, I just had to get through the end of October. Like I just had to get to there, and then I could breathe for a little bit. One, thinking that things might start to get better. But then when they started talking about vaccine, I'm like, okay. And now I'm in a situation where I've been vaccinated. So at least the way Pennsylvania is handling it right now, I don't have to quarantine unless I start seeing symptoms, like from contact tracing rather. I don't have to do that. So I feel like a little bit more comfortable, but what's still in the back of my head is, what if I do develop it? What if I do have that? And so I can't just say, well, I don't need my backup plan now. No, that's no longer an option. We have to think about that even more so now because of how quick. I mean, before it was like, oh, I'll just perform sick. Not with this one.
Yeah, we can't do that anymore.
So I'll kind of take my takeaway from
Yeah.
Mitch's, because this is something that kind of really hit with me. You know, he was talking about his hurdles and the hurdles that we have to overcome. And there was the one that just smacked me right in the face was, you know, was there a time you should have said no? You know,
Yeah.
just, it was talking about time management and that kind of thing. And, you know, was there a time maybe you just really felt like you should have said no? And I recently had this happen. So there was I was in the running, for lack of better terms, for a school prom that we have coming up. And a lot of our schools are in the area, rather, are waiting until right before graduation or right after graduation to do proms. And knowing that they were going to have difficulty getting Saturdays, they've been doing them on Fridays, which is fine and dandy for the most part. But I had one of the schools reach out to me and wanted information about doing one for a Friday night. And I talked to them and gave them a bid and everything. And I didn't hear anything for a little while. And the more I just sat, the more it just kind of stewed with me. I'm like, I'm just not feeling this one. Like it's got to be more than just the money that would come in for the night. Like, and the more it kind of went, and finally I contacted the advisor back, and I was like, listen, I said, I'm no longer available that night. That's all I put. If you need help, you know, finding someone, let me know. And she said, actually, yeah, she's like, we haven't made our decision yet. And she's like, we'd love some input on, you know, on some people. And I passed it along. So like, at first I was like, oh, I didn't hear because I didn't get it. But in the same respect, when she said that, I'm like, okay, now I'm still glad that I reached out, because one, it kept the door open for future, but two, it was just, if it's not sitting well for whatever reason, maybe it's a vibe, maybe it's because of another event you have coming up. But I was just like, you know what? I say no. It's okay. In fact, I found sometimes when you say no, that's when suddenly you're in demand more. Not from that one, but just in general.
You encompassed quite a few things from all the lessons, and that thing right there. You made a contact with the person, so you're connecting with the person. You were kind to them, so that you extended a hand, so that may be something for you in the future. You took your ability to say no, and in my view, you were creative in the way you did it, to where you left it wide open, not a rejection, but a simple unavailable. Which, again, how you word things changes everything. And you worked there's some people that I've seen work situations that it's like, man, they have skill and ability to do that. And that's one right there, to where some people might have been knocked off their feet by that just stress of should I or shouldn't I. So that's a lot right there. So good job.
Thank you. Sometimes that can be also an advantage to, I know sometimes we get in the habit of booking everything that comes into us, but almost drawing out that process a little bit. You don't want to draw it out too much to where you kind of lose a client or kind of give them a chance to go elsewhere before you're comfortable, but not like jumping at something the very first contact. Almost get that conversation going, because it gives you an opportunity to have an out should you want it. You know, if you start, it also gives you a chance to find any red flags that you may not have known. And there goes into that, getting to know the client and asking the right questions.
Man, you should like speak on YouTube about DJ stuff. You really should.
I have to look into that. It might be something he could do.
You guys know anybody that can help me with that?
Like weekly,
maybe when he gets older, he can do that for a job. Howie, what were your thoughts? What did you have?
I thought it was another validation for me that I'm on the right path. He has a way of making things simple and understandable, and I really took away, like, especially with the backup, that yes, this is the way to do business. I mean, have a backup not just on equipment but on talent as well, and to have the documentation. When I went through that thing with the cancer, that was a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Luckily, it wasn't luck. I just printed everything out, and I was able to pass that on and have people help me. And it was the timeline to, the first dances, everything like that, for me, a validation that I'm on the right track, So I always enjoy listening to him. He makes good points, and I enjoyed it. I mean, it was basically a really good night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some great content.
It really was.
One of the things when Mitch is, and I've had him speak at different events. He's done numerous videos. There's times where he's talking and he explains what's going on, or how something's happened and such. And I'm thinking to myself, man, if I would have just thought that quickly, or been able to do it that smoothly, or had that conversation and took it that direction.
Mm-hmm.
He does that so well.
You think maybe he practices this?
Yeah, there could be that too, and he probably's done it 1,000. That's done that kind of stuff 10,000 times, and I'm still doing it the 4th or 5th. So,
yeah, it's one of those. I mean, Mitch has a book out. If you haven't picked it up, but Sales for Event Pros, I think is technically the name.
I believe, yeah.
It's been a couple years since I read it. But very, very practical type of ways of looking at it. But again, it's going to be one of those things where if you don't practice it, and I don't mean like practice on people that call you, but go through those scenarios, create that role playing type of setup, create your script that you're going to use for rejections or for stalling or whatever that might be the case, and then put it to practice with some people so that when it calls, it's also thinking that off the top of your head. How many times do we practice our sets, or we practice songs that might go together? We might even practice scripting that we might use at an event, even maybe scripting our meetings. But a lot of times scripting those initial phone calls, those initial emails, we don't think necessarily. Maybe I'm generalizing, only looking at myself, but I know for me, that is an area that I often don't spend enough time in, for sure.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Well, gentlemen, we need to wrap up here because Howie's got another show coming up here in just a few minutes. He's got the heavy load tonight.
He's the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Howie Darkstar.
He is.
Thank
Howie,
you.
give us a little preview of what's going to be coming up here at 10 o'clock, and I'm going to put that link into the description or into the chat so you guys can you go there. Just going to send a shout out here. We've got Randy was with us tonight, Gus, Jimmy, Mikey. Thank you for being with, and there's a few people on Facebook. For some reason, it's not showing me who you are. All it says is I've got this string of Facebook user people who made comments. So thanks for being with us tonight. I appreciate it tremendously. Howie.
Thank you, guys. Well, it's a timely topic because a lot of people have been getting hacked or cloned, and believe it or not, just this afternoon, Eric Wilson, of all people, got a phone call and got fooled into giving some information out. They claimed they were from his bank, and so I decided, you know what, this is timely. I'm going to push some of the other scheduled stuff ahead and get two of the top people that I know to come in and talk security for your business in all phases of your business, on social media, banking, website, your phone, everything. And so I have Jimmy Reed, aka J-Rock, coming in, who works in IT, and Lou Paris, who still works in IT and worked for the FBI in the IT area.
Nice.
And he actually does seminars on this. I didn't know until I asked him if he would do it. So we've got two really good guys that'll walk us through some of the pitfalls and help us avoid losing money, reputation, and accounts.
Excellent. And for those, the link to go to is djntv.com/chill. That's in our chill room. Howie and Lou and Jimmy are going to be on the screen. When you come in there, just shut your camera off, shut your mic off, and you can listen to the recording tonight. And that will be posted later this week, aiming for Thursday night on our DJNTV or on YouTube page. But if you want to see it live and recorded live and then be able to ask questions afterwards, just head in there right in 10 minutes. They'll be there. DJNTV.com/chill. That's our chill room. It's open every night of the week. Some nights there's a big crowd. Some nights only a couple of people. but that's a time. It's kind of like the hallway at a DJ convention. So head on in there and have some fun. Let's see. Tomorrow night, Ben Stowe, we're going to talk robotics. And I know that sounds like it's a little off key, but we got a tie-in for that one, and Ben and I are going to dig into that one tomorrow.
Talk about Ben's brain is what you're going to do.
Yes, that'll be it. That'll be it. So that'll be hit tomorrow night, and then Jay and Brian, I think Jay might be in. Is Jay in? No, he's in. I don't think Jay's in Milwaukee. So I didn't see him. I saw Nick. I don't know.
I saw a picture with him and a few other people on the promo only page.
Yeah, I think Nick and
they were all together.
Nick Toad.
Yeah,
and,
Pioneer didn't.
Yeah, I don't think
go.
they're up there. So the guys will be there in the chill room on Tuesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern. So you guys can definitely do the same thing and check that out. Mikey Mike's posted up there. And then Wednesday night, MJ, did you have a?
I don't have a topic yet, so it may be open question night. And actually, let's I'm just saying right now, it's open question night because open question night was supposed to be the last Wednesday of every month, and it is the last Wednesday of the month. So there you go.
There we are.
See,
So
I didn't have a topic, and you guys creatively helped me come up
Just
with the perfect
like
topic on the perfect night.
by pointing to a calendar.
This is why we do this.
Excellent.
Open question night. Come to me with every stupid question you have and every smart one too. And we also will be talking about something special Wednesday night that you won't find out about till tomorrow. That's all I'm going to say.
I know what it is.
Watch DJNTV tomorrow.
You can bribe me. I'll tell you what it is.
I will hunt you down, Dan. I will come to your house and feed your kids sugar and then leave.
And then leave. Yes. And give them noise
You can't
makers.
make it any worse.
Give them noisy toys. Okay. Dan, take us home. We got to get Howie on to the next show.
All right. So again, thank you very much for taking the time out of your night to be able to join us. Again, the whole purpose of tonight was to kind of give you some of those nuggets that maybe you didn't pull out yourself and give you some encouragement to go back and check it out. And again, that virtual expo link, djntv.com/virtual expo. You can check it out so you can see the whole thing. If for some reason you missed it last week and you didn't watch it yet, now you need to. Okay. So thank you very much. Stick around again, djntv.com/chill for Howie and his crew. Thank you very much. Good night.